I don't think of any of the accomplishments as solo. I don't think institutions like Lilas and Lilas Benson accomplish things because of one person. And there's just a number of different kinds of changes that have taken place over the last 7 years that I feel very, very proud of. I guess but the first is maybe less, it's a little harder to articulate, but really important. That is in organizational change, how it feels to work in Lilas Benson now versus 7, 8 years ago. And that has to do with all kinds of different factors, and it's also very subjective, so it may not be shared by everyone. But my experience is that it's become more and more of an exciting and affirming and really mind-expanding place to work in ways that have to do with the intellectual community that we're building, having to do with how staff have taken ownership of the project and have come together as a collective in all kinds of ways. How those internal kind of problems that sometimes gnaw at the good feeling of working in an institution have really, I feel, have gone down to a level where they really don't feel like they're very present on a daily basis, and that's been replaced by a real sense of communication, of constructive criticism, of certainly problems that need to get resolved, but a real sense of I think that most people in Lilas Benson share now of just the excitement of working here, and that's something that I really has grown actually for me over time. And if it's not just my strange, and out of sync perspective, it is something that's shared by most people that work here. I feel very proud that we've accomplished that together. Probably the biggest transformation, and the one that really has propelled us forward and that I think of most often, is, of course, the partnership itself. And that started as an idea and as what they say in Spanish, an apuesta, a possibility, something that we didn't really know where it was going to go, but it seemed like an exciting and important thing to try, and it's blossomed, and it's produced a lot of opportunities for rethinking Latin American studies and rethinking our own organizations that I think will, as long as we continue on our current trajectory, will really set Lilas Benson apart in the nation and in the world as a center for doing Latin American studies in the broadest sense. So that's something I'm very proud of. I think also in terms of how Latin American studies works here, the recruitment of our own faculty is already making an enormous difference in terms of intellectual community, in terms of the possibilities for really sustaining the energy of a really complex and multifaceted organization. We need to have faculty involved. We need to have faculty that really belong to the Institute, even though they also belong to other units. And their presence, it's just now congealing, and I'm so glad that it is. Before I leave, there'll be lots of challenges, but having those 8 faculty members, and perhaps more in the future, I think will be very, very important. Thirdly, I feel like the graduate program has taken on a new character in the last 7 years. The revitalization of the PhD program has gone absolutely in the opposite direction than most places in the country. It's really energized graduate studies in Latin American studies at UT. and created. I think the graduate program has developed because of what's happening with the institute, because of the kind of students that are here, because of the excitement that is being generated more broadly, and also the particularities of how the program's been run. It really has developed a mystica, has developed a kind of a reputation across campus for being a supportive community, an engaged community, sometimes a very activist community, and one that really embodies some different principles of graduate education than would exist in conventional departments. And I think if we're going to justify Latin American studies as an area of graduate studies, it has to be something different than studying anthropology or studying political science or whatever. If we really are dreaming big, we have to raise our own money. We have to depend on our own endowments and our own base of supporters outside of the university. Not just private gifts, but also more grants and external support. I think the development office, which really didn't exist before, has been a big commitment in terms of budget, in terms of how the organization works. But it's a long-term investment in institutional autonomy, and I think in this day and age we're down to what the state funds our university at about 15%. We can't sustain anything like the level of aspirations that we have unless we continue to develop and continue to raise our own money and have a vibrant development operation. So I think that's, having laid the foundation for that, we haven't gotten the big gift that that was achieved in the previous era, but without a development operation, it would be very unlikely that we'd get lucky like that again. And I think now we're laying a different kind of foundation for going forward. The university is at a really interesting moment right now. We have a new president that has made a strong statement of priorities in relation to what he calls the internationalization or the globalization of higher education. In other words, he wants the University of Texas to have some kind of unified and coherent strategy for becoming a great global university and not just national and obviously Texas-based. It's a little bit analogous to President Faulkner's announcement that Latin America was a priority, but this is actually bigger in terms of its potential scope and transformation of the university as a whole. I think one of the key challenges for Lilas Benson as we look forward is making the case that we offer the key elements of a model for how the whole university should be internationalizing, or whatever the term is. And so I think we'll want to continue a lot of the programs that we have in place, and we'll want to think much more toward how what we do really represents exciting and forward-looking ways of internationalizing education. So one example of that clearly has to do with the deep collaborative approach to studying Latin America that we always say we want to do, and I think we have done in certain cases, and we need to do more. So that's a very different model than the way Latin American studies has operated previously, where it's been a northern gaze, a northern discipline, sort of looking to the south, and it's also about really transforming the way that program works, the way that study abroad works. So concretely, we need to really develop deep and enduring relationships with our sister institutions throughout the region. Not across the board, but strategically, and really show how that internationalizes UT. And it's a very different model than, say, the idea of a campus abroad that many private universities have done. We're talking about working together with our Latin American colleagues who are on the front line of the study of the very topics that we prioritize in Latin American studies. Another example there is study abroad, where the study abroad programs that we're pioneering are not just UT students in the classroom. We want to have UT students together with students from the locale where the students are studying. And so it's a collaborative affair from the beginning. That kind of aspiration, I think, if we can generalize it and turn it into a kind of a set of principles, will really help to guide the president in his broader efforts, which I very much hope will be realized. I'm finding as I have more conversations about this across the country that there's all kinds of working together between libraries and academic units or research units, but this level of integration just isn't happening, and it's for lots of good reasons. It hasn't been easy. But it produces a set of opportunities for how we carry out our work, where we're constantly thinking about, as is the case with these interviews, we're constantly thinking about building scholarly resources, integrating the archival and the documentary with teaching and research in ways that are, I think, very exciting. And to give one example there, that something that I think is going to happen in the near future, I hope it will, digital repatriation. This is I think it's a term that was developed by one of our faculty members. What it means is that the libraries, special collections, have incredible documents, which came from Latin America. Those documents can't really be repatriated without dismantling the patrimony of, say, the Benson collection. But through digital copies, we can bring those documents back to the place of origin and engage the contemporary the descendants of those that the documents were about, who produced those documents, in dialogues about their meaning and educational activities, and can kind of make the documents come alive in a contemporary setting, while also, at least symbolically and to some extent materially, returning the patrimony to the communities and institutions where they probably, in a more perfect ethical world, should probably have stayed in the first place. So I think those kinds of activities, I think, will be very much part of the Lilas Benson in the next era. If we're going to be a model for the university and for international studies, Latin American studies more broadly, we have to figure out how to reach across the whole campus. We have to be, we can't claim that everything is Latin American studies, but there has to be Latin American studies has to have something to offer, some reason to be at the table in any kind of work, academic work, whether it's in petroleum engineering or whether it's in computer science or whether it's biology, that has to do with Latin America. And so we have to figure out a way to make what we do very centrally in humanities and social sciences and some other areas like law and communication. We have to figure out a way that will be truly campus-wide. And that's a challenge that we've just begun to really confront, and it's going to be something that is going to be increasingly important to confront in the future.